Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings. We waited long enough. It is time to get to the rankings for Fantasy Football 2023. Welcome back, all of you who tune out when golf starts and football ends. But hey, this is why we're here. It's why we cover two main sports on the Pat Mayo Experience. So if you've been away for a while, reminder to smash the like and sub to Mayo Media Network and turn on those notifications, okay? Free newsletter to subscribe to down in the description. And always go to runthesims.com. If you go to it in the preseason, it's completely free. You can build your own custom projections and rankings. If you want my rankings, hit the description or just type in Pat Mayo DraftKings Network and boom, you'll find them up there. I'll have them updated with injuries and all that fun stuff like I've done every year for the past 13 years. Because Chris Meaney, I'm old.
You and me both, buddy. Well, you've been at it a long time, longer than me.
We were doing this show in 2014, you and I. It's been that long.
Man, time flies. 2014, good times.
It was a great time.
Great times together. Yeah, time. I mean, we're still talking about some of the same players in your rankings. I would assume, not even looking at your rankings, you're high on Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
In your overall rankings.
Yeah, not as bullish as I've been in years past. I've had him ranked, I think, as high as like 4th overall. Yes. And it's been a good bet for basically each of the past 7 years or so. Yeah. Just having that positional value. Like, there's other guys. Like, I think one year Mark Andrews outscored him, but he was
outlier year.
He was still second.
Yeah.
So the positional value wasn't as great as it was in other years. But if you could just pencil in a guy to be essentially like wide receiver 10 or better, and be tight end 1 6 of 7 years, it's pretty good.
It is pretty good. And yeah, I looked into Travis Kelce, I remember last year, just comparing him to the all-time greats like Tony Gonzalez and some other guys. And I mean, he checks out that he's going to finish with probably the best stats ever of all time at the tight end position. And last year, wondering who would be the wide receiver 1 in Kansas City, and he's the wide receiver 1 in Kansas City. Tight end, wide receiver 1, same thing this year.
Yeah, if you missed content from last week up on the pod feed or on Mayo Media Network's YouTube channel, Jake Seeley was on his top 5 bus, his top 5 boom players to look at. Those are 2 separate videos, one podcast. Had to separate it out to bump up those numbers a little bit. But today we're talking about running backs, the running back tiers, the running back rankings. I got my list separated into like kind of tiers right now, but I want to run it by you to figure all this out. So let's get to it. Christian McCaffrey, number 1. Austin Eckler, number 2. I have Tony Pollard at number 3 and Nick Chubb at number 4. And I don't know how those tiers actually shake out. Because are you worried at all about Eckler, new offensive coordinator coming in? We saw Kellen Moore's, I don't know if it was a Mike McCarthy decision, a Kellen Moore decision, or maybe it's a Dak Prescott thing that he doesn't really check down all that often. You see the Chargers, they bring in Quentin Johnson, more of a deep threat. Justin Herbert's already talking about throwing the ball downfield a little bit more. Does it affect Eckler? Because if he's not, let's say the target share goes from like, I don't know, 15% to 9%. Doesn't seem like that big of an adjustment, but it is.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the things on Run the Sims that you can go in and do. Like we can go to the Chargers right now and have, let's see here, Austin Eckler at a 16.4% market share. If we bump him down, he's at running back number 2. If we just bump that down to 9, it makes him running back 10.
Yeah, and that is that's a big jump. I think it's hard to say he's going to have another season with 100+ catches, but he does lead the NFL among running backs and touchdowns over the last 2 years. Like he's always getting the carries inside the red zone. He's getting the targets inside the red zone. You feel like more will help this offense, so maybe it's a little bit more efficient. They score more points, so I'm not worried about him. He's right there on that same tier for me
with McCaffrey.
With McCaffrey, it's those. Is two alone for me.
Okay, so it's just those 2. Chances McCaffrey's worse in the system. Like more like a healthy Elijah Mitchell that'll last like 2 games coming into the year. We'll see who plays quarterback for the 49ers. Like
good point.
Like I don't know if that actually makes a difference. It's not like you're not going from Tom Brady to Dirty Purdy. You're going from like Sam Darnold or Brock Purdy. Like,
yeah, as long as it's those 2, I think like if it was Trey Lance and it's a huge if at this point.
It's not Trey Lance. Unless they both get hurt, it's not Trey Lance.
Exactly. So if it was, I would be worried a little bit there. But I guess the only thing I would say about CMC is maybe the touches come down a little bit from his Carolina days. But again, efficiency. Like last year, they still, like Shanahan still gave some touches to Elijah Mitchell down the stretch of the season, but it just seemed like CMC was a walking 100 total yards and a touchdown. I think he played 13 games with the Niners and had 14 touchdowns, or vice versa, one of the two. So it was basically a touchdown per game, and it's a good offense, and it's a weak conference. I have no concerns about either of those two. Like again, those guys are. You're a little more bullish, I think, on Pollard, but I guess I'm just skeptical that they're going to enter the season with him just there. I still feel like they're going to bring in a veteran back in Dallas.
So that's the thing. I suppose we should probably let people know this is coming out on Tuesday. We're filming this on Thursday. So, I mean, Zeke could sign.
Could.
In the interim. But I'm doing it as I see
as
the
of
landscape right now. And if he's
Looking at the depth chart,
like, if there's one thing to point to with fantasy and running backs, I mean, people forget this all the time. Volume matters the most.
It really does.
Talent doesn't mean shit.
Well, think about last year. Nobody really cared about Tyler Algier or Dameon Pierce. In fact, the Falcons didn't care that he had 1,000 yards and 200 carries because they drafted Bijan Robinson in the first round. So they didn't care one bit about that. So volume is king, and the backfield is his at the moment. Malik Davis, they drafted Deuce Vaughn, who his dad is the scouting director in Dallas. So maybe they just did him a solid. He's fairly small, and I don't know if he profiles as a back that could even get 10 carries a game if something happened to Pollard. So my one thing with Tony Pollard is there was only one game, I think, where he's had 20 plus carries in his career. And sometimes we've seen before, it's small sample, but I think of Chase Edmonds and Drake.
I think of Lamar Miller.
I think Lamar Miller's a good one too. Like some of these guys just needed like a full workload. It changes things. Like when you can go back to, I think of Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds. I remember I always wanted Chase Edmonds to get more touches. He deserved it. There was a couple games where Kenyon Drake wasn't around, and then he looked good. And then when there was a spell of an opportunity for him, he just wasn't that efficient. So I'm sure Pollard will be fine. He's very explosive. I wonder if he can pass protect, and hasn't been that efficient as a goal line back. But ultimately, as looking at the depth chart, you're looking at a guy that's going to get 20 touches in a really good offense.
Yeah, so last year, let's see, in the playoffs, he had 18 against Tampa Bay. That wasn't a great game for him, but he still put up almost 100 yards between it. There was 3 catches for 12 yards, didn't really help out, still averaging 5 yards a carry. And then down the stretch, he was utilized a little bit less. Against Jacksonville, he had 23 touches, and it was an all right game. But like his all right games right now, if we're talking even half-point PPR, in that he's getting 4 catches, 19 carries, 75 yards, 31 yards. Like the baseline for him because of the volume is going to be really good. And you have to remember too, is it that he's not good in short yardage, or is it that Dallas was like, well, Zeke's really good in short yardage? And if Zeke comes back, that could be the problem again.
Exactly, yeah. I feel like Zeke was good for his game, like kind of spell him a little bit and get those short yardage situations. Unfortunately, he would steal some of those goal line attempts. I remember a game last year where Pollard had 3 straight attempts inside the 5 and didn't get in, and they decided to go for it on 4th or whatever. It was the game against the Texans, actually, and they were down. It looked like they were going to lose to Houston, and then Zeke got in for them. You know, reports out of Dallas say they're not going to bring him back. I know he's been working with Dak Prescott, hoping that maybe they'll bring him back. He's going to catch 3 or 4 passes a game on top of those carries. So if he's not super efficient, all those touches will pile up. But coming off the broken fibula, it seems like I'm more concerned than the Cowboys are because they haven't done anything to this point.
Because initially when I did this, because I did the rankings 2 months ago and just kind of sat on them and looked at it, and I had Pollard, I think, at like 9 or 10 or something like that. And then every report that I've seen is like, oh yeah, no worries.
No worries.
It's sort of like Javonte Williams. They're like, yeah, no worries.
No worries. And, you know, Javonte Williams, when we get there, I think he's been probably the biggest steal so far in drafts. Like if you're early drafting, Javonte Williams has been a 9th, 10th round pick, and now wasn't placed in the pup list. Practicing, that guy's going to skyrocket up draft boards, as he should.
So tier 2, Pollard and Chubb I have right there. And then it's Barkley, Henry, Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, Joe Mixon, and Najee Harris. You could make a case for Stevenson, Breece Hall, Jacobs, Cam Akers, Etienne, J.K. Dobbins. Like I have them all on like the next tier down, but we're here to talk through some of these tiers and how those guys end up working out. So like volume is obviously what I'm going for. And we're talking about season-long fantasy football.
Yes.
When you start looking at ADPs on like DraftKings Best Ball, it's not going to be the same as you're drafting. Like, I mean, this is more of a discussion for the wide receiver show that we're going to do, coming out in 2 days, by the way. So hopefully no one gets hurt in the interim. Joe Burrow like could be dead for all we know. Like we just go on, it's like, oh my God, Joe Burrow's carted off. He could be back in 2 days with a calf strain. He could be out for the season. We don't know.
Yeah. I hope it's not the latter.
Yeah, I hope it's not the latter either. That would not be great for the Bengals or people who've invested pretty heavily in the Bengals so far. But like stacking in season long is a far more dicey proposition
Yes.
than it is in than it is in best ball.
Backs go earlier in redraft.
100%, as they
It
should.
always will. Yeah, they always will.
So Eckler's going at number 6 overall. So I'm using the NFC, NFC
Yep.
high stakes fantasy football drafts from the last week to look at ADPs. McCaffrey's going at 3 on average. Eckler's going at 6. Then you got Bijan Robinson coming in at 10. That's too high for me. And he might be the number 1 player. Like I'm conceding that point, but
Yeah.
I feel like we've done this so many times with the rookie. I mean, he seems like he's better than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but
Yeah.
we were drafting Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round
Remember
too.
Trent Richardson? Remember Trent Richardson back in the day when that was a top pick and everybody was drafting him in fantasy in the first round? How'd that work out?
I feel like he was okay his rookie year.
He was.
It was like the
actually
next
alright.
year that he was really terrible.
I love Bijan. People will label me as the hater on Bijan. I've already kind of labeled him a bust, and Jake and I are on the same page as you. I think he's fantastic. I think the system is great in Atlanta with Arthur Smith. He knows how to run the ball. It's an underrated offensive line. Just mentioned Algier, like he had 1,000 yards on 200 carries. Bijan is a true bell cow back with way more upside than Tyler Algier, and he can probably catch 50 passes as well.
But-
It's just everyone's drafting him to be the best running back in fantasy football. That's what people are telling me. If you're going to draft him 8th overall, you're telling me that he is going to be arguably the best. You're drafting him at cost.
Yeah,
he has to be perfect.
Where is the upside with it? Like you're always trying
RB1.
to get, and it's tough. Like if you have the 10th overall pick and you're sitting there, or the 9th overall pick, and you want to get him, well, that's the only spot you can take him because he's gone.
Yeah, and I just can't do that. I can't draft him over Nick Chubb. Why are people drafting him over Nick Chubb?
What do we make? Because I have Chubb at number 4 right now. I can be talked off of that one. Do we think he catches more passes or no?
Absolutely, I do.
He has to,
He's
right?
my RB3. And I looked a lot into Nick Chubb in his rookie season. In his last 7 or 9 games, he averaged just over 2 catches per game in that rookie season. And then his sophomore season, he was on pace for 50 grabs. That was at the halfway point when they brought in Kareem Hunt. So he was catching. When people say he can't catch balls, it's false. He can. And that sophomore season, on pace for 50 grabs. Hunt just came in and stole all that work. Now Hunt is gone. So not only is that 40-plus targets that Hunt had last season, that's 120-ish carries, including 25 inside the red zone. How many times have we pulled our hair out thinking, why is Kareem Hunt on the field? Like, why isn't this Nick Chubb? Jerome Ford is not going to be involved in red zone packages. No chance. Chubb is going to get some work. I like Ford as a guy that's going to get some work as well, potentially on third down, but he's got like a couple touches in the NFL. This is full Nick Chubb season, coming off a career high 1,500 rushing yards already. He's had 1,000 yards in 4 of his 5 years, never under 5 yards per carry. It's the best pure runner in the game behind a really good offense. I am bullish on Chubb, and I would much rather take him at 8 than Bijan.
So I don't know if I'd want to take him at 8. So I guess I'm going to collapse this tier. So we'll have McCaffrey and Eckler on their 1 tier, the high upside pass catching backs,
Yeah.
efficient red zone, everything that you kind of want. The overall volume isn't there like we saw, like you mentioned, like with McCaffrey 3 years ago, where it's like, oh my God, that's not happening anymore. There's like no running back. Barkley is probably the only one that can do that.
Yep.
So I guess my question to you is, what is the difference between Saquon and Bijan Robinson? Just outside of Saquon going 10 picks later.
Nothing. And Taylor, too. Nothing.
Taylor, I can see. Because if Anthony Richardson is the starter, you can play this one of 2 ways. It can be completely beneficial to Jonathan Taylor because he opens up so many running lanes. We see this when you have mobile quarterbacks that you can't just stack the box. You have to have a spy on the outside or it's just going to be RPO the entire time and you're getting burned on the outside. Look how much it helped David Montgomery last year.
Right.
With Justin Fields, despite the fact they knew Justin Fields wasn't passing.
Right. Yeah. No,
it
a good
still
point.
worked.
Yeah.
Or you get into the Bills' backfield situation where, oh my God, Devin Singletary. Got to draft Devin Singletary. Got to draft Zach Moss. It's like, oh, you know who their red zone back is? Josh Allen.
Yeah.
I could see that being the case where it's a lot of Jonathan Taylor, almost Nick Chubb-esque. 19 carries, 91
couple
yards,
catches.
1 catch for 3 yards, no touchdowns.
It's a good point, and we definitely view him as a pass-catching running back because of the first couple of years that he had in the NFL. He's catching 40, 50 passes, but it is a new quarterback. It's not a check-down Matt Ryan or Nick Foles or whoever the heck they've had over the past couple of years there, Phillip Rivers.
This is the Bijan thing as well. So oh my God, we have Ritter me timbers. Bijan's such a great pass catching back. They're going to be checking down. Go look at Arthur Smith's involvement in the passing game to running backs.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden
Non-existent.
he leaves Tennessee. All of a sudden Derrick Henry's catching a bunch of passes.
I know. I wanted to put Henry up with these other guys.
I
but
have Henry up there. Why are we out on Henry?
We shouldn't be. We shouldn't be. And again, early drafting, you're right. Best ball is different, but high stakes as well. You mentioned NFFC. I think at the end of the second, I believe his ADP maybe 24.
24, exactly 24.
We're talking about a guy who had the most touches, most attempts last year. 2 years ago, it was
On
a half
pace
season.
last year.
2 years ago, he got hurt.
Oh yeah, 2 years ago.
That year, he was on pace for 400 carries.
Yeah, we
maybe
don't
that's
need-
why he got hurt.
Yeah, maybe we don't need him to have 400 carries. Maybe we get like 275, but just have a tick up in those
Yeah.
passing numbers. All of a sudden, we're good. Like Tennessee's okay. They could win that division. They could be last in that division.
Hopkins makes them more competitive.
They do, but their defense isn't like their defense is okay.
Yeah, it's just
But
the secondary.
Tennessee just loves committing to running the ball. They love it.
And Vrabel's a good coach. He gets the best out of all his guys. It's all cliche, but it is true. I mean, Tennessee is never like they've went up against powerhouses. They beat Baltimore. They beat Buffalo. They beat KC. They beat all these teams before over the past couple of years.
In
but
the regular season.
in the regular
Well, they made that.
season.
I guess
they
they made that
one run
run
against Baltimore.
Yeah.
But I think Tannehill only threw the ball 9 times in that game.
Smart.
Yeah, absolutely. Hand it off. But you're right about Henry. 2 years in a row. That half season when he was on pace for those 400 rushing attempts, he also was getting roughly 2.5 catches. Now, it doesn't seem like a lot, but 2.5 catches, adding that up over a course of a season, now we're flirting with maybe 36, 40 catches.
Or maybe even look
As
at
a floor.
45, 50.
As a floor.
Yeah.
And they used to just give him a screen or two every single game. I know because I was betting on the over 10.5 receiving yards. I'm like, if they're going to give him one screen pass a game, he's probably going to take that for a first down. And why wouldn't you give the ball in his hands in space? So I think he's one of the better values where if you start your draft, whatever way you want to go wide receiver first, you can get Henry in the second and then maybe get another wideout with your third pick.
I think that would be my preference right now. And listen, it might not work out because I do think that high stakes drafters, best ball drafters are different than me and you getting together with 12 of our other like random buddies in drafting. They'll see the name Derrick Henry and be like, oh shit, Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Like he'll be more valuable in casual leagues
Yes.
than he will be more competitive leagues. But I actually think that's the right move.
Yeah.
Because if you wanted to start your draft, if you have the number 1 pick and he's going at pick number 24 in a 12-team league, that means at pick 24, if you pick first, you can get Derrick Henry.
Yes.
You're risking it by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just want to take Jefferson or Kupp number 1, I mean, some people will say Jamar Chase, depending on this Burrow news.
Sure.
I have Chase at 3 in all disclosure. I think
Yeah.
that it's 1 and 2, Jefferson and
Kupp.
Kupp, then the rest,
Yeah.
with Chase at number 3. But if you wanted to go Justin Jefferson, Derrick Henry is your start.
That's a pretty good start. And when we get into the wide receivers, I mean, Chris Olave, Devontae Smith, T. Higgins maybe hanging around there as like your wide receiver too, if you wanted to go that route and go maybe like a quote unquote hero RB, like one RB to kind of carry you, and then get back into the running backs between rounds 5 to 7. That's my strategy. I really like picking in near the first part. You have an advantage with Justin Jefferson, even Cooper Kupp.
I think that it's a coin flip between them.
Yeah.
That Jefferson did, and we don't know how much like Addison's going to be involved. Does KJ Osborne step up? How much does Hawkinson take away in that offense from him? I don't think it's going to be very much. We can kind of project out what his floor is going to be every single week.
Yeah.
But at his best, Jefferson has higher upside than Cooper Kupp. The difference with Cooper Kupp is like he's basically a lock for like 9 for 110 every week. Every week.
He really is. Like, you can't take him away. I think there's been one game in the last 2 years from Arizona that he was just taken away from the game, but he even averaged more fantasy points per game than Justin Jefferson last year, missing half the year.
And the Rams' defense is worse. They're going to have to pass more. Now, coming off the injury, who the fuck knows with Stafford?
Yeah.
But if you just go under the assumption, I don't think it really matters who's passing to
No.
Kupp. But if Stafford could become 100% healthy for all we know.
Yeah, and they bolstered the offensive line through the draft. As long as Sean McVay's calling plays, Cooper Kupp's going to eat.
Yeah, they have the Bel Air basketball offense. They have the pass to will offense. Past anyone else, you're getting benched like Carlton.
What a brutal attempt from 3 for Carlton.
So at the back end of this, after Robinson, like if you wanted to put Robinson ahead of Chubb, I understand that. I think all of those guys are very close to each other. But I do have those concerns about how many passes he's going to catch in that offense. I'm not as in on Atlanta as everyone else is. Everyone, breakout team. It's like, really?
Yeah. No, their defense sucks.
They might suck. Like
They want to run the ball 35 times. They're going to have to throw the ball sometimes.
I mean, maybe that was a product of Mariota, but maybe Ritter starts to run a little bit more. Who knows? But I don't know. It feels like they just want to play these like almost like old school Tennessee games where they just want to like squeeze out the clock as much as possible. And like Algier's not like valuable fantasy wise, but he could be.
He's
if something happens
underrated.
to Robinson, all of a sudden he's great.
I know, and I wonder. You draft a guy and you spend that kind of capital, you probably just right away give him 20 plus touches. But I wonder if the first couple weeks it's like 70-30.
Yeah, and I'm not too concerned about what happens the first few weeks. I'm more concerned about what happens
long
towards the
haul.
end of the year.
And
But
he
I
should
mean,
overtake
at least you
it.
can guarantee his health going into the year. You
Yeah.
can't guarantee that. I mean, we can't guarantee that now. He might
Right.
blow out his knee in practice or something like that. But
Yeah.
presumably, he's going to be fine in week 1. Week 9, who knows?
Who knows? I know.
But even when we talk about like Gibbs a little bit later on, like I don't think he has the full workload.
Man, this guy is rising up draft boards. RB12, I seen him recently just jump ahead of Najee Harris. And if the Jets sign Cook or the Patriots sign Fournette or Jacobs holds out or people are worried about any of that stuff, then Gibbs may even jump those 3 guys. He's already going way too early. Way too early. Dave Montgomery is the value in that backfield.
Of course.
Is he going to play the Jamal Williams role? He's going to get all the goal line touches? Well, Jamal Williams led the NFL in red zone touches or red zone carries and goal line touches and rushing touchdowns. And Montgomery is a better back than Jamal Williams.
The Gibbs thing just reminds me of, I mean, maybe he's a lot better than DeAndre Swift, and obviously there was some
Probably will
contention
be.
within the coaching staff with Swift, and maybe he just turns out to be better. We saw the upside that Swift could have in that
Absolutely.
offense. The problem was it was like every third week. Like that's not. It's great to win you a week,
Yeah.
but it's not great when it loses you 2 weeks.
I know. Swift, so many times I watched this team, like he did all the work, brought them all the way up the field, and then, we'd see Jamal Williams come in. I think Gibbs is definitely going to be much better, a better back than Swift. He can carry the rock, which something I didn't believe that Swift could really do efficiently.
How do you feel about
a
Swift?
great
on,
offensive line,
Swift on
too.
your team?
He's an easy fade. Philly's just going to rotate through all these guys.
It's going to be Penny, man.
Yeah,
it's
Penny's
going to
gonna
be
be- Penny's gonna
until
be
he
the-
gets hurt in week 4.
But they may be able to keep these guys fresh if they go, hey,
Boston-
Penny, 7 carries, 7 to 10.
Boston Scott, we're playing against the Giants. You get 20 carries this game.
You score 2 touchdowns. Kenneth Gainwell in. And, Swift, he's probably got maybe more upside because he catches passes and Penny doesn't. But I think the most valuable piece in this backfield in Philly will be the guy that could get the first and second down looks and the goal line looks.
But there
behind
is
a
no
good
goal line
offensive
looks.
line.
Jalen Hurts just runs in touchdowns.
20 goal line rushing attempts last year, number 1. You're right. And Jalen Hurts hasn't shown me that he's willing to check down to a running back either.
Why would he check down for 4 yards when he can run for 20?
Exactly. So I don't think Swift as RB 24, 25. I think he's an easy fade for me. No chance.
Mixon and
Hope
Naji.
he does well, though.
Yeah. Mixon, you're praying for him to be great.
I am.
Yeah, but you have that emotional investment. The
I am.
personal, you don't need your money
Yeah.
on the line with that one. No. And listen, if he falls super low, then
Then he
sure.
becomes a value.
Then he's a good, then he's a good chance to
absolutely.
take. But when he actually costs you something, and that's the Bijan thing. Like, think about how much he is costing you. If we were to go like doing auction right now, $200
my.
budget, like McCaffrey's going to go for like 65, 70. Bijan's going to go for like 63.
He's going to be the first person I nominate in auction drafts. Go ahead.
I love doing that.
I love too. I was like, all right, I like this guy, but and that's the biggest tip, right? Don't nominate a player you want. Nominate a player that people are going to spend and let them spend their cash.
Early.
Early on.
The first 2, you can do that. But I always find, this is a tip that I give every year in auctions, the first player nominated will always be a value, regardless of who the player
nobody
is.
wants to spend.
Because no one wants to blow their budget on the very first guy.
Yeah. I've seen that more times than not.
Yeah,
You're right.
because if you put up McCaffrey first, McCaffrey might go for like 61, but then then Eckler will go for 71 like 3 picks later.
Yeah. A few minutes later, you're like, wow, CMC is an absolute steal at the moment, right? I mean, Bijan Robinson went in for $84 and CMC went for 66.
Yeah, and that's why tiers are important when you're doing this, especially in auction, but it even works in snake drafting as well. Because if you agree with me, maybe you don't agree with me, and your tiers are a little bit bigger, that McCaffrey and Eckler are the 2 best, and they're separate from the next 7 guys. Well, spending a lot on one of those 2 guys makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because the other guys are inherently going to go for just as much because people will look at their tiers. And when you can check off Pollard and Chubb and Barkley, Henry and Jonathan Taylor and Bijan Robinson, then you got Najee Harris and Joe Mixon sitting there. And they're going to go as much as the guys who went before.
Yeah, they really are. I love a stars and scrubs approach. I always have. I like to just I think the first couple times I did an auction, I was maybe a little hesitant to spend my money like that. But
And
then
people are, because people don't want to run out of money.
they want to run out of cash.
But here's the thing.
Leave it. It's the worst. You can't take it home.
It sucks.
So you go in your pocket.
And then you end up doing really stupid things
Yeah.
because you have so much money left that it's like, oh yeah, I spent $19 on Jacoby Myers because I'm the only person with money left.
Shit.
Yeah,
That's
like,
not what you want.
I could have got him for 3 and spent that extra 16 on someone
Yeah.
good.
Be aggressive. Get a few studs. Let them be the foundation of your squad, and then fill in the gaps.
Yeah, like don't spend it. I mean, you can spend money at quarterback, but don't spend too much.
Need to.
You don't need to.
No.
So Mixon is sitting there, and obviously we don't know the full Burrow news. So let's work under the assumption that Burrow's
Let's hope
fine.
he's fine week 1.
And even if he's not, maybe that's more work for Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
They brought Mixon back. He's going to play.
Yeah.
Yet he's currently going as running back 15. It is the past week
Yeah.
of ADP, pick number 46.
Yeah. It's a pretty good value.
I would think so, yeah.
It's a pretty good value of a guy who's going to catch 50 passes. Like, he's underrated in the passing game. I think
Well,
he even
and
had
P. Ryan's
60
not there.
grabs. I think he even flirted with 60 catches. And he wasn't super efficient last year. And I think that's the biggest thing. People just don't. They know the offensive line still stinks, even though it's made improvements over the past couple of years. And he wasn't efficient at all, especially in the first half of the game. And then he had a 4-touchdown game, and it was kind of inflated that way. But he's a back on a good offense
That's gonna score points.
That's going to be on the field. When you do your snap counts, I would imagine he's probably top 5 every week. Like, I can't see a situation where he won't be over 65, 70% of the snaps.
Yeah, he'll be up there every week. And then,
There's no Samaje anymore.
That's sort of the reason for Pollard being as high as he is, too. Like, as it currently stands, like if we're talking about the 80%, let's call it the 75% club, who are going to play 75% of their team's offensive snaps. McCaffrey might not, weirdly enough, but he'll be 70 plus, which is good enough for him because he's on the field, he touches the ball and catches so many passes. Eckler probably around that number too. Like, they're close enough to the number. Then you have your pure volume guys. I would say that Chubb and Pollard and Barkley are most definitely in there.
Definitely.
Henry's going to be in there. I would guess Bijan is going to be there, but if he wasn't, if he was like 65-35, I mean, that's a hit to his overall production. Unless he's scoring 80-yard touchdowns every week.
People who love Bijan at pick 8 do not want to hear that number. No, they want him to be in the 70s with these other guys, and I think he will be.
Jonathan Taylor probably is.
Yes.
Mixon probably is.
Yes.
Harris probably is, but that's why they're all on that tier, because the only other one I could make a realistic case for, I guess, even if the Patriots don't bring in anyone else, Ramondre's not playing 85% of the snaps. This is not happening.
He's not.
Pierre Strong will play like 30%.
Which is a big bummer. I was looking at some numbers with Ramondre Stevenson because I really like him. I was just looking at his rush percentage and some of his snap counts, and they were fairly low. And I thought, maybe as of right now, there's an opportunity like Tony Pollard, but they've brought in Lenny Fournette. They brought in some other veteran back.
Is he officially signed as of right now?
No, but they just brought him in to work out. So it just makes me think, like, there's some reports out of New England that they want to ease the workload, and those reports kind of seem true if they're bringing in a guy like Leonard Fournette. Like, what do they need to bring in? They know that he's a veteran
presence.
back, but they know like what he can bring to the table. And I don't think he's going to be, if he was in New England, I don't think he would be efficient at all to like overtake Ramondre, but he could get goal line work. He's proven that he's a great pass catcher, so that would get in the way. But Ramondre, top 5 in targets and catches. He's a really good running back on a bad team.
If it wasn't the Patriots, you'd feel so much better.
You would. You really would. But Pierre Strong, they tried with Robinson, right? They signed James Robinson, so they wanted to have somebody there behind him, like they did with Damian Harris. So as of right now, maybe a little bit of a risky pick if you're thinking he's going to be a true bell cow back. Because I do believe that they'll bring somebody in.
I think they will too. And even if they don't, they'll just use remember that like German guy that they had? He just used
a huge big body.
Yeah, he was like their fullback. Like, let's give him 5 carries. Why not?
Inside the 5 too.
They just want to prove that they're smarter than everyone else. But maybe if they do commit to him, he could be a top 5 guy.
Oh yeah.
If everything breaks right for him, he could be a top 3 guy.
Absolutely.
He could basically be Austin Eckler.
Absolutely agree with that. I think he could be, and it's hard to label somebody a league winner who's going to go in the first couple rounds.
He's pick number
to the
32.
3rd round.
Yeah.
He's a guy that could, if you're trying to think of 5 running backs outside of like the top studs, like not including Taylor or Chubb or Saquon, like he's one of those guys that could be a potential like bold take. He could be an RB1 overall, and that would not surprise me one bit.
Are you buying into the Najee Harris renaissance here?
I like Naji. Jalen Warren's getting a lot of love. He as a guy that maybe can step in and steal some touches and catch some passes. But I like Naji overall as a player. And T proved to me at the end of the season that
it was injury related.
Yeah.
Because right now, like in our projections, we have Naji as the lead, with Warren still getting like 14 or 34% of the carries, Naji 45%, Kenny Pickett with 14%.
Yeah, he likes
Although
to
every
run.
time he runs, he gets a fucking concussion. So maybe tone that one down a little bit. But if we can get Harris up a little bit more, like he is a pure volume guy.
is.
Like he's going to plod. He's good around the goal line. He has good hands. It all depends on how much Warren actually, that's why he's at the bottom of this tier. Because I do fear a little bit, although the Steelers have never shown that they
never.
want to use two backs ever. So I don't
Yeah.
know why I'm thinking that.
You're spot on.
But I'm just, everyone kind of thinks that. So now I'm looking at it like, well, maybe they're right and I'm wrong.
Yeah, I was really in the camp of Naji getting like with these other guys like 70%, but I think it's more it's not Naji and his skill set. I think it's more Warren. Like Warren showing up to camp, he's impressing and he's good with the ball in his hands. But you're right, Tomlin has always just kind of rode a guy, but Naji's a decent target. I like to kind of go wide receiver heavy in the first few rounds, so I don't have a lot of shares of him. But in the fourth, he was going in the fourth pad a couple weeks ago, and I think that's pretty good value if you can get him in the fourth.
So Warren's going at pick number 146. And I don't think that he's going to be a player that like you're ever going to use.
No.
But
Bye week
Najee's
stuff.
going as running back number 9, pick number 30. I'd rather just take Warren in the 13th round and like hope Harris gets hurt.
Yeah, and then you have yourself.
then you have yourself
the Tomlin effect of the bell cow running back next man up, D'Angelo Williams of the world when Bell went down, all those guys.
Even when Bell sat out,
Yeah.
and we used D'Angelo Williams for those like
Top 5 back,
4
wasn't
games.
he?
He was a top 5 back. He was great.
He was great.
Just you get up, you
Yeah.
get all the volume.
Yeah.
Here you go.
And one thing with Naji too, before we move on, it was a lot of catches that first year with Big Ben. Of course, he was checking down, but he still, there was a massive drop off, but it was still a healthy number. I still believe he was 40 plus catches, and having the Lisfranc injury and very limited and not efficient at all to start the season. But that's another thing where when they moved on from Trubisky, the offense just flowed a little bit better with Naji too.
Yeah, it's true. And it seemed like he put the foot problem behind him midway through the season after their bye week. Like, would you rather draft Naji or Ramondre?
Ramondre.
I think I would too. I feel like I'm getting sucked into some weird like Najee Harris stuff. Would you rather draft Breece Hall or Najee Harris?
Breece Hall, but I am concerned. Is Tim?
Tim is not concerned.
He's not. Eh?
Although it was funny when Dalvin Cook was looking to be traded, the Dolphins were the big team that was like going to be on. And Tim went on this rant to us about how Dalvin Cook is washed. He's no good.
Now he's
what
good.
a liability. And now it's like, we need Dalvin Cook.
Oh my God.
Now that he
Classic Tim.
any interest in the
Come on,
Jets,
Tim.
all in.
Come on, buddy. Dalvin Cook's still a beast. Is another guy too.
Is he though? Like, is he kind of?
I still think
There we
he's
are.
got a. I still think he's got another good season, and I would personally like to see him in Miami if I'm picking between the two teams.
I don't want to see him in Miami. I think Miami's fine at running back. Like they don't.
I think
need,
they're fine,
Like,
too.
they're gonna rotate.
Yeah.
You don't want any of them.
It's the Shanahan McDaniel offense from years. They've been together for years, right? Atlanta, Houston, and San Fran rotate through Mostert and Wilson, and Devon A-Chain is the speedy guy they just took. I think they're still Gaskin on the squad. Miles, is he still hanging around?
Salvan Ahmed is still on the team.
Yeah, he. I think he is. Yeah,
he
you're
is.
right.
Yeah, I saw some. There's people out here who love Salvin.
I drafted Breece Hall on Sirius with Howard Bender, and that was the first call. They ripped apart my team. They said, I was Fabiano. He's like, Yanni, are you concerned about Breece Hall? I'm like, no, I drafted him. I'm not concerned. He's like, so you're not concerned about the Cook rumors? I'm like, they're just rumors. They don't need Dalvin Cook. It's just, if they actually bring him in, then they're worried about Breece Hall. That's the way I'm viewing it. As long as this goes on, and Breece Hall can get on the field, then maybe they're not worried about Breece Hall, and he'll just give him a go.
Okay, so you like him over Harris. What about like Breece Hall versus Josh Jacobs, who may or may not be playing? He's gonna play. But
Yeah, I like Jacobs.
like
there.
the worst case scenario with his holdout, one game. That's it.
One
And
game.
He'd be stupid to do it.
Yeah, I get he's ticked off. They played him the Hall of Fame game. They didn't pick up his fifth-year option. McDaniels, all like I understand all of it, but what benefit is he going to have to sit out?
Yeah.
He just led the NFL in rushing yards, and he didn't get paid. How's that going to work out if he just takes a seat for the whole year? It's not going to work out well.
So would you rather have Jacobs?
I would rather Jacobs.
Would you rather have Jacobs or Najee?
I'd rather have Jacobs.
All right. So,
Underrated in the passing game too. 40+ grabs, back-to-back years.
and it's funny because that's something that we always kind of dinged him for, but it just turned out
didn't
that
catch. Always said it was game script dependent. When they were down in games, didn't catch. Now they're going to be one of the worst teams in football. He's going to catch. He's going to be on the field grabbing balls.
you just wait for the Zamir White people to come out of the woodwork. This is the time.
I see him getting drafted
all right.
late in certain drafts.
Going late, I
Take a shot.
understand it.
Take
But
a shot
are
on it.
we even sure?
He's any good?
I mean, I'm not even concerned about that. Whether he's good or not is irrelevant.
Yeah.
If Jacobs gets hurt, are we sure it's Zamir White who's going to be fit? It could be Amir Abdullah.
And if it's McDaniel from the Patriot ways, it'll just be Amir Abdullah, be a bunch of different dudes. Yeah, we've seen this story before.
So that's all kind of the tier. So I bumped Ramondre, and so I ended up going Pollard, Chubb, Barkley, Henry, Taylor, Bijan, Mixon as tier 2. Tier 3, Ramondre, Jacobs, Breece Hall, Naji. Then I have Cam Akers, or maybe that's a tier by itself. Those 4 guys: Ramondre, Jacobs, Hall, and Harris.
Yeah, I'd say those guys are a little bit closer to tier 2 than Cam Akers.
And then maybe I have Cam Akers too high.
No,
but
I like him.
I have Akers, Etienne, Dobbins, and Aaron Jones. And you could talk me into Madison in that tier. You could talk me into the Jahmyr Gibbs talk show into there. And then the other names around that area, like Miles Sanders, Kenneth Walker, James Conner, Rashad White. I think those guys are probably on a tier by themselves as well. So maybe the tier should be tier 4, Akers, Etienne, Dobbins, Aaron Jones, Madison, Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, I like that. I like putting Madison in there, and even Gibbs. I know we were hard on him. He's going to get a lot of touches and good offensive line, good offense.
Like, if it's me and I'm doing it, so where's Gibbs going right now?
I just can't take him at underdog. He's RB12. I just can't take him at RB12.
He's RB12 in high stakes as well.
I just won't have a lot of shares of him if I have to take him in the 3rd round.
Yeah. It's the maybe early 4th round, late 3rd round is where he's going in 12-team leagues.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. If he was a 4th round pick, I'd be fine with it. I think he's going to catch 40 balls. Probably live in the 700-yard range on the ground.
Let's take a look at the Run the Sims projections here to see where
give it a little sneak peek. What do we got?
He projects out. I mean, you can go find these all for free at runthesims.com as well.
free.
I hear you spouting off a lot of these stats. Is the FTN data product like just feeding you information?
I've just been doing these random drafts all day, every day on Mean Streets, and diving into the FTN data for sure.
And tell people about the Syria show on Saturdays now. My old time slot.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Saturday morning, Jake Seeley, Lauren Carpenter. 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern. It's been a lot of fun. Jake gave it to me at the start of the show about being Canadian. These guys were all over me being Canadian. It's like, come on, settle down here. What's going on? Like, you have internet in Canada, this and that.
Sorry, Jake, who has terrible lighting in Virginia Beach.
Made up time zone, Meaney. What's going on? Like all this nonsense. So it's been a lot of fun though. We had a couple guests who are taking some calls and things like that. It's been a good go.
So Gibbs projects as running back 16 for the year, and half-point PPR that would leave him at 198 fantasy points. That's behind. Projections love James Cook apparently. Wow. I don't buy that because I don't buy that he's going to score any touchdowns. But
like him as a back,
Gibbs projects behind Etienne, for example, and just ahead of Javonte Williams.
I think Etienne should be ahead of him. I do have some concerns. We can talk about Etienne. I mean,
he's a part of this tier.
Yeah, Urban Meyer, clueless, clearly.
No,
right? Clueless. Draft him in the 1st round. Maybe Peterson's not married to him. Has a history of utilizing and using a bunch of different backs the year that they won the Super Bowl, right? Ajayi, LeGarrette Blount, Corey Clement, all those years, right? Miles Sanders not getting touched in the red zone. We've been down this. Ryan Matthews been down that road like all the time. But Travis Etienne, I kind of view him as like a CMC, not the same type of upside as a guy that maybe he's only touching the ball 15 times. Maybe they use some Tank Bigsby, in some 1st and 2nd down opportunities.
Great name.
Great.
Tank.
When you got a name like Tank,
it's true.
You got to use him near the goal line. You got to get him in short yardage situations.
Clayton Bigsby's son.
Yes. And he's a really interesting back to get late in drafts because he may, like I said, get some goal line work because Etienne he struggled. Getting 20-plus carries. He had the injury. He got some carries, short yardage carries, and red zone carries taken away from JaMychal Hasty. And Trevor Lawrence was starting to run a little bit inside the 5, which is great for his upside. So they go out and draft a running back. They also go out and sign Dearness Johnson. So they brought in a couple different backs here.
Dearness Johnson's still alive?
He's still alive.
Good for him.
I don't know if he's going to touch the field this year, but he's alive. But my biggest thing, Pat, is I don't think they'll see a lot of stacked boxes against this high-powered offense where he can be super efficient.
The crazy thing is that we talked about the past 2 years with Etienne. It's like his utilization in the passing game is such an edge for him. Turns out they don't throw to him ever.
No, not really.
The maximum amount of receptions he had in a game last season, 3.
3? And I'm a sucker because I was taking over 2.5 plus money almost every week. Come on, this is the week 3 grabs. He can catch just fine. What the heck?
They want Lawrence thrown downfield.
Yeah.
And now with Calvin Ridley there, I assume they're going to want to throw downfield even more.
Zay Jones, Kirk.
Jake was giving me the business. So last week we did Booms a Bust with Jake. He had Calvin Ridley as a bust.
Man, him and Ratcliffe, I don't know what's going on. They both hate him. I just wrote something yesterday on FTN Fantasy about guys that I feel like people are too low on or vice versa. And it's just like looking at the rankings in AEP, and I'm seeing people have Kirk ahead of Ridley.
That seems crazy.
Or Ridley at 10 and Kirk at 40. Like, these guys should be a lot closer than that.
See, I don't think so.
I think they should be like, I think Ridley's maybe wide receiver 15 and Kirk's 27.
Sure. I can understand
One's a
that.
2, one's a
But my argument with Jake was that if one of these guys is going to be a top 5 receiver, there's one choice. It's not
Ridley.
Christian Kirk.
No, we just saw the career season from Christian Kirk. He's a really good wide receiver. He had a great season, but now you're not taking anybody away. Marvin Jones had 80 targets. Who cares about him?
Yeah, he's going back to Detroit.
You're adding Calvin Ridley. It's been some time, but he's 2 years removed from like a 1,400-yard season and 90 catches. He's a stud.
What do you do with Aaron Jones?
I don't touch him.
I don't know what to do with him.
People talk about how he's a great value. He's a good pass-catching back, but look at his rushing touchdowns over the last 2 years.
He's picked 50.
I guess that's is that decent value?
I don't know. Like, I don't know how to project
He's in a range that I don't care about. Like, he's in
the
kind
dead
of
zone?
almost in that dead zone. Again, for me, I like to do maybe a hero RB, get myself a top 12 running back, and hammer home some wide receivers, maybe a tight end or a quarterback, and then I'll get back in after Jones. But Jones, 2 years in a row, where he's basically had all of his goal line work and red zone rushing attempts taken away from him from A.J. Dillon. Why wouldn't you give the ball to Dillon if you're inside the 5? And what's the rapport going to be like? It's been fantastic with Rodgers. Put blindfold on Aaron Rodgers, he can throw the ball to Aaron Jones. Is that going to be the same with Jordan Love?
And how good is this offense going to be without Aaron Rodgers and
It's
Jordan?
very young, which is different.
Yeah, maybe it's just different. Maybe it's just as good. Who knows? But
Christian
maybe
Watson year 2, Reed year 1,
Romeo
Doubs is year 2. It's a fairly. They got 2 rookie tight ends. This offense may surprise some people, but it could also struggle.
I think that people are still glomming on to the Aaron Jones massive touchdown outlier season, where even if you look at his game to game, I think he had a 4 touchdown game, a 3 touchdown game, and a 3 touchdown game.
15 rushing touchdowns on top of the work through the air.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh my God, this guy scores all the time. And then you go look at it, it's like, well, it's kind of like the Alvin Kamara effect.
I think he has 7 or 8 rushing touchdowns in the last 2 years. I'm pretty sure he's lived in the 3 or 4 range over the past couple of seasons. I'm not interested in taking a running back inside the top 50 that's going to be in a committee with an inexperienced quarterback with young weapons around him and is not guaranteed goal line work. So
so
he's
pass.
an easy pass for me.
So should I have him above Madison or Gibbs? Probably not, right?
I think he's fine in that tier.
Well, is he would you rather have Javonte Williams or would you rather have...
I would rather have Javonte Williams.
So I think he's on the tier down, and maybe Javonte moves a tier up now that it's not that we're not concerned about his health, but it's looking better.
It's looking better. He wasn't placed in the PUP list. He's cleared for contact as of today, recording. He was a first-round pick last year. Everyone was drafting him as a first-round pick. Nobody's really worrying about it at the time. Like Melvin Gordon, I guess was he still in the squad? I don't even know. Melvin Gordon, that 2 years ago in Javonte Williams' rookie season, had a really good season, but Javonte did overtake that backfield towards the end of the season. I don't believe Melvin Gordon was on the team to start last year. Javonte had 1 or 2 games with Russell Wilson. I think one of them he caught 10 or 12 passes.
But now they have P. Ryan, so
now they have P. Ryan.
It's a little bit different.
But Sean Payton has done a good thing. He's good for this offense. Did you hear his quote?
Where he's ripping Nathaniel Hackett?
My good, he's one of us. Didn't we all think that?
So, okay, Dobbins, just quick. Like Akers, ETN, Dobbins.
I think it's good tier.
It's good
He's
tier.
Vic ETN, right?
Yeah.
Not a ton of touches, not a ton of catches.
Remember when he came back for that one game and he scored the 2 touchdowns? You're
Yeah.
like, he's back! And
He's
he's
back.
terrible the rest of the year.
His rookie season down the stretch, he was a touchdown per game guy. He's very efficient.
Madison.
Not very efficient.
Feels like wishful thinking that
It
this is
does.
going to turn out well.
I know.
But volume. Yeah.
Jinx. That's it. 6 games. We get the split stools. I know you got a lot of tools too. It's a small sample size. It's over a course of, I think, 3 years. But there's been 6 games where Cook hasn't played and Madison has just had 20-plus opportunities.
Yeah, but I feel like half those games he was absolute dog shit.
He was, right? It's kind of like Chase Edmonds. When we talk about Chase Edmonds, he's getting all the work because Kenyon Drake's not around. He had 22 carries for 61 yards and 1 catch for 12 yards. But he is going to get a lot of work. Is he going to get the pass catching work? Because the Vikings are missing some guys on the offensive line. Their secondary is still trash.
If he can pick up 4 catches a game, then it's a different story. And he can. So
you can do that, but I wonder if they go like I have Ty Chandler last year. They drafted as a pass catching back, and then they drafted Dwayne McBride, who's also a pass catching back. So maybe that's part of their thinking. Like, yeah, we'll save this money and cut Dalvin Cook and hand over, because they did extend Madison in the offseason. He was also a free agent, but they also drafted back-to-back years like pass catching back. So I don't know.
he's going as running back 22, pick
40
number
grabs.
66.
I think that's okay.
That's I mean, I like that better than the Aaron Jones pick
Me
number
too.
50.
Me too.
Like a round later, more guaranteed volume, at least perceived guaranteed volume, with that upside that if he is a 3-down back, all of a sudden you're potentially looking at a top 10 guy.
Yep.
It'll be hard for Aaron Jones to be a top 10 running back outside of an outlier touchdown season.
Right. I
Where
agree.
Madison might not need that. He just needs the volume, which is there.
It's there.
The path is there. It's just like Cam Akers. The path is there.
I like Akers
for
a lot.
him. He just, and talk about a guy who turned his fortunes around.
I don't know what the heck went on with him and Sean McVay last year. Doghouse, away from the team. He, according to reports, Akers felt like he should have got more touches, and he looked like a guy that needed more touches towards the end of the season. He had 3 straight 100-yard games to wrap it up. They didn't do anything. They didn't bring in a veteran back. They drafted a guy in like the 6th, 7th round. Again, they bolstered the offensive line. All they did in the offseason was shed salary cap.
Yeah.
And I think that he's a sneaky option through the air too.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy that could get 35 grabs.
He could get more than that. He could be one of those guys that ends up every single game like 4 catches for 8 yards. And it's like, well, that sucks in real life. Great for fantasy.
Great for PPR leagues, because who's going to be the number 2?
I went down the Kieran Williams experiment last year. Not a
Not
success. Like, what happened to where did Darrell Henderson end up?
He's nowhere.
Nowhere. He's just a free agent.
Yeah, hanging on my bench in a dynasty league.
Zach Evans seems to be the one. Like, if you had to take a shot, it would be him. But let's be real here. Like, Kupp is basically the only Higbee as well. I think Higbee's
some odd catches from Higbee.
yeah. Like, if you could get Higbee at a decent value, I think that's
And you
fine.
can.
And then just like Akers is a lot like Madison in a way where the path is there for him to have 20 touches a game.
Yeah, he may not be super efficient. He's explosive. He's had some really nice runs. I mean, he's an outlier, really. Him and Deontay Foreman as a guy that come back off these Achilles injuries. And what I was saying with the number 2, like, who's the number 2 after Kupp goes down? We already played this game. Like,
No one.
Nobody. It's not Tutu Atwell. It's not Van Jefferson. It's chronic. They drafted this Puka Nakua guy who could be okay, I guess, but he's just a rook, and they drafted him late. Higbee is the 70-plus catch guy after, but you got to keep all that in the back of your mind. Like, Cam Akers actually could be the third target in this offense, the third option through
He
the
could
air.
be. It's all about him being on the field on third downs. Like, if we concede that the offensive line may be a little bit better, that's nice and everything like that. But the defense is going to be significantly worse.
Absolutely.
Which means they're going to pass like 65% of the time.
They really will.
So the volume through the passing game is going to be there. If he monopolizes the ground game and the goal line work, you can talk yourself into it, which what I'm doing right now, almost like you can with Alexander Madison. I just think that Cam Akers is better than Alexander Madison.
And he makes for a good, I think, in my opinion, he makes for a good RB2. For a guy that you can get in the 5th round.
Like, if you want to go wide receiver heavy or tight end early and Derrick Henry stays where he is, you take Derrick Henry either at last pick of round 2, first pick of round 3, pair him up with Cam Akers at pick number 65.
Love it.
That's not bad. Then you have Justin Jefferson or Cooper Kupp or
I've been doing a lot of
Olave.
That's been a lot of my drafting so far this year. That will be my strategy. Cam Akers there. After that, Rashad White's hanging around, and Javonte Williams is hanging around. Both of those guys.
So I have Javonte at the bottom of this tier. Akers, Etienne, Dobbins, Madison, Gibbs, Javonte Williams. Before we get into Aaron Jones, Rashad White, James Conner, Kenneth Walker. I talked about this with Jake, and I actually agreed with him. He had Rashad White as one of his busts, like where he's going. And one of his booms was Khalil Herbert, for example. I don't see any difference between the two of them. Like, are we sure White's the guaranteed lead back in this terrible offense?
Yeah, we're sure.
For sure?
100%.
100%.
100%. I'd say 99%.
And then what would you say about Herbert then?
50%.
Really? You think Foreman's going to take away carries?
They also drafted Roshan Johnson, and they have a.
We see a lot of guys get drafted every
But
year. And we try to
he's
talk
a guy
ourselves
that's
into-
actually not bad. Like, he played behind Bijan, so he doesn't have these numbers and get the touches. I think he's a potential league winner. Roshan is a guy that goes after those two that you can get around RB 55, where it's maybe one of those things like. Speaking of Cam Akers and Javonte Williams, remember their rookie seasons? If you were patient enough with those guys, they eventually overtook the backfield. It's all about patience, and maybe that won't play out. I like Khalil Herbert. I think he deserves to be the lead right away. But there's 3 running backs on that squad, and
you
Justin
have
Fields.
Fields. So that's really the big
I'm not
thing here.
really into
But
any of
the
those
thing with
guys.
White is they bring in Chase Edmonds, who Our guy Chase Edmonds.
Yeah.
He's gonna get his 10 touches.
I don't think so.
Yes, why bring him in?
It's just like a depth piece. You gotta
Sure.
have somebody there.
But you mentioned like drafting Johnson on the Bears.
Yeah.
They also bring in Sean Tucker, who was supposedly injured. Why he kind of fell.
Yeah.
All of a sudden he's fine. Cleared for contact.
Yeah.
So why is that not being held
and
against
they
Rashad
still
White?
have Keyshawn Vaughn there.
He's useless.
I saw a report the other day. Keyshawn Vaughn.
Oh my God, they have
selling at
Ronnie.
camp.
This can't be the same Ronnie Brown.
I thought you were gonna say Hillman. Like
No,
How old are
Ronnie
we?
Hillman. Oh my God, no.
the one thing I like about Rashad
No,
White
that
is
can't be him. Yeah, he's 41 years old. It's a different Ronnie
it's a
Brown.
different-
It was like, Jesus, Ronnie Brown. What a throwback.
not super efficient running the ball last year. It's not going to be a great offense, but you and I chatted before. Maybe it could be an okay offense.
I would prefer the receivers.
Would
like,
you be shocked if Tampa had a better record than the Falcons this year?
No, I think they're
They
all
could be-
bad teams.
They could, yeah, I know, but they could be a 500 squad. They could be. They still have good pieces on defense and offensively. Of course, you're moving on from Tom Brady and Baker and Trask, but Rashad White caught 50 passes last year as a rookie with Leonard Fournette, also getting like 50 catches.
How much of that is a Brady influence?
Sure.
Look
Some checkdowns.
Look at the New England running back pass catchers pre-Brady,
Fair point.
post-Brady. That's just way higher.
Absolutely, fair point. But he proved that he can pass protect Brady. He was on the field in very important situations, and I think that's key for a rookie. And the fact that he did catch those passes, like that's very important to me. That he was, as a rookie, he was able to catch 50 passes. I don't care really who it was from. So as a team that may be playing from behind quite a bit this season, I think he is a guy that's. I view him honestly. Maybe I'm a little bit bullish. I wouldn't be shocked if he was in the top 12 in touches this year overall opportunities.
I would be. He's going at pick number 67. That's essentially the same range as Madison and Akers. I'd much rather have those.
I would much rather have those two as well. Maybe he's jumping up draft boards because he's been an easy 5th, 6th round pick for me.
Yeah, I mean,
as RB 27ish.
Yeah, pick number 66 right now.
Yeah, what is that RB 20? What is? Are you still at NFFC?
Yeah, I am. I'm just looking at the overall because I wanted to make the point. Mike Evans is going at 76. Just, I'll roll the dice on Mike Evans around later than take Rashad White, who might not even be a. Like, if we talk about snap shares, if
Sure.
every week I put out the snap shares and Rashad White was 48%, the lead back, but he was 48%, would that stun you? It seems like yes is the answer.
it would. It would stun me. Yes, I do feel like he's going to live in the 60% range with Fournette gone. I do. Again, I didn't think that they did a whole lot through free agency in the draft. I'm not worried about Chase Edmonds. Remember Chase Edmonds going RB24 in Miami? What did he do? He
Sure.
didn't touch the field. He wasn't any good.
No, but then they ended up bringing like Jeff Wilson and Mostert, who ended up
Yeah.
doing exactly what I think is going to happen to this Tampa backfield, where they're just going to have a bunch of guys and they're going to run through them all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see.
White is going at running back 23.
So he is moving up to the point where, yeah, he's in that Cam Akers tier where if I'm picking, I'm choosing Cam Akers over him.
Rashad White or Javonte Williams? You said
Javonte.
Javonte? DeAndre Swift or Rashad White?
Rashad White.
Miles Sanders or Rashad White?
Miles Sanders.
Okay. Damian Pierce or Rashad White?
Damian Pierce.
James
That's really close.
James Conner or Rashad White?
I just take Rashad White.
How's it? David
They're
Montgomery.
the same. I might go Montgomery there.
James Cook.
I'm going to go Rashad White.
I feel like that's a very similar situation, but you have one in a high-powered offense and one not.
Yeah.
Isaiah Pacheco.
I'm worried about the shoulder now all of a sudden. Pacheco, I'm really high on. I do like Pacheco. And I think because of this shoulder, he's actually turning out to be a really good value. Now, he's not going to catch any passes, of course, because Jerick McKinnon's going to do all of that. But he came on really strong in the second half of the season on the brightest stage in the Super Bowl, in the playoffs. And now here, year two, like year one was him as like, oh, a 6th, 7th round running back. You know, you got to leapfrog CEH, you got to leapfrog Jerick McKinnon. And at the second half of the season, he was getting all of those touches. Now I view year two, best offense in football. Andy Reid, what he can do to the running backs. Going to be the goal line back. That's probably, I'll take that back. Goal line, Mahomes, and they're going to throw the ball. They always do weird things.
Saving Jerick for the playoffs.
Saving Jerick for the playoffs. But Pacheco, I think, can be efficient in this offense if you give him 12 to 13 touches.
Pacheco or Montgomery?
I'll go Montgomery.
Pacheco or Sanders?
Sanders.
Pacheco or A.J. Dillon?
Pacheco. I do think AJ is a decent value too.
Yeah, he's going at number 27 right now. James Cook is actually quite interesting because Pacheco's going at running back number 29. Cook is going at number 31. Kamara is going at 32.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of that.
I mean, if he gets suspended for 2 games, he's the biggest steal in draft.
Is he though?
He might be.
Because
If he's going to RB32, he may be.
He wasn't.
Yeah, but Taysom Hill got in the way. We got Derek Carr checkdowns, right? Like well, all those ones to Jacobs.
Well, when I brought up Rashad White, all the players that I listed off to you, would you rather that, or all players being drafted behind Rashad
him? Yeah.
White?
Yeah.
So
you take the.
I kind of agree with Jake that he's not saying that he's going to be terrible as a bust, just like where he's going, it's just too high.
He's just moving up, I guess, because at the start, even a month ago when I was taking a look at all these running backs, as I talk about my strategy, I've been living in between rounds 5 and 8, and he was a guy that I was taking, almost every time in the 6th, 7th round. So yeah, he's moving up to where maybe he's not totally worth it.
Ken Walker.
Yeah.
Hardly knew her.
Yeah.
Everyone's very freaked by
Charbonnet.
Charbonnet.
Yeah, pop a bottle, champagne. I'd be worried. They drafted a running back in the 2nd round the year after they drafted Walker in the 2nd round. But they want to run the ball.
They do. And you have to remember, too, though, the only reason Walker got his shot last year is because Penny went down. Penny was the lead.
Yeah.
And Penny was great.
He was great.
For them. But he gets hurt.
Yeah.
He might as well be. He's like the actual. Remember Christine Michael?
Oh, yeah.
Like everyone's all in every time that he would get a chance.
Yeah.
Penny is kind of the inverse of that no one ever wants Penny, but whenever he plays, he's incredible.
But if I had to choose between the two and we have to bring in ADP, I got to take Penny over DeAndre Swift because of what we talked about earlier.
Kenneth Walker, DeAndre Swift?
Over DeAndre Swift. But I wouldn't take Penny over Walker. I still think Walker would be the lead, but I am concerned. Because he doesn't run any routes and he doesn't catch any passes.
Wildly inefficient.
And he's not inefficient.
Big plays.
Exactly. And Charbonnet, again, you draft a guy in the 2nd round, you have plans for him. And Charbonnet kind of profiles more as a bell cow back. If anything happened to Walker, Charbonnet would come in and be a 3-down back where Walker just doesn't have that upside. And we can't guarantee that this guy's the goal line back by week 4 or 5.
Oh, yeah.
There's just no guarantees at all. I like where you have him ranked. People don't have him ranked that low. They have him like 17 and they're like, bust. Like, that's not a bust. Put him in the late 20s.
Are we talking about Ken Walker?
Ken Walker. That's
so,
bust.
I mean, I don't know what to see right now as I kind of add everyone up.
He's like 15, I think.
McCaffrey, Eckler, Pollard, Chubb as a recap here. Barkley, you can just hit the description and find the actual rankings. They're not up yet as I'm recording this. That's why I'm putting it next week so I can get everything together. Henry, Taylor, Bijan, Mixon, Stevenson, Jacobs, Hall, Harris, Akers, Etienne, Dobbins, Madison, Gibbs, Javonte, Aaron Jones. That still seems high for Aaron Jones.
Yeah, and what's that, like 21?
Miles Sanders, David Montgomery, Isaiah Pacheco, Damian Pierce, Rashad White, Khalil Herbert, James Conner, 28, Kenneth Walker.
Yeah.
And he could be great. What are we doing? Like,
I really like this.
James Conner feels like the poor man's Alexander Madison right now.
So I did the athletic mock with Jake, and Jake took James Conner. He's a big James Conner guy, but I understand what he's doing. He's taking the value. Like, nobody wants James Conner. They're going to be the worst team in football.
Pick 76.
They may win 1 game, but how many catches did he have last year? 50-ish? He finished RB10, I believe, last season in fantasy points per game. He missed a bunch of time. I don't want to have a running back on the worst team in football.
Fair.
Like, they're not going to live inside the red zone. He's pretty much off my list. But if you can get him in the 10th round, the 9th round, which will happen in your home leagues, he will fall. He will fall, and he will catch passes, and there is nobody behind him. Keontae Ingram, we already saw how that worked out last year. Not very well for him.
Go USC.
Yeah. So
to look at the Cardinals right now, the way that they're projected out, like he is one of the few running backs that we have projected for more than 50% of the team's snaps, or not even the team snaps, team's carries.
Yep.
And that's assuming Kyler Murray even comes back in December or something, which is, if they're terrible, he ain't coming back.
And because they'll be talking Caleb Williams one overall.
Oh, yeah. They're not, or maybe Clayton Tune will be so good. Looney Tunes, just vaulting you up the board, taking you out of the Caleb Williams sweepstakes.
Oh, boy.
But like projections have pretty modest projections. Just have Connor's running back number 21. He's being drafted as running back 31.
Yeah.
Like that's
value.
It's
that's
actual value.
You take what the draft gives you, and we just talked off the top of the show about volume and opportunity. It's king, especially at the running back position. It's very important. Like, again, Tyler Rozier, Damian Pierce. Like, these guys got all the opportunities on bad football teams, but we're still low on RB2s.
So within 10 points plus or minus by the projections, here's who James Conner projects around. He's within 10 points of Rashad White, Aaron Jones, Cam Akers, Pacheco, DeAndre Swift, Najee Harris, and that's it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
There's some decent names there, like Naji and Pacheco.
but that's assuming that there's a big Warren from something about Mary split with Naji. And if that's not the case, Naji's up with like Stevenson and Henry and those guys.
Yeah. Well, to your point, volume, right? He's going to get him. Where's Derrick McKinnon on your? Derrick McKinnon should be in this.
Oh no, Jarrett's getting 3 touchdowns. He's in bubble wrap until they go.
He's
to the
definitely not
playoffs.
going to get 9 receiving touchdowns this year. But I am interested in him in PPR leagues.
I got him at running back 34 by the projections. That's in the same tier as like Jamal Williams, Khalil Herbert, Damian Harris, Brian Robinson, Jalen Warren, Dobbins, Kenneth Walker. Like the projections hate Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, I see that, and I kind of agree with them.
There we go. So I guess if I'm calling someone a bust, it's old Kenny Walker.
Like Kenny Walker's the bust. You tell Jake it's Ken Walker. He'll probably agree with you. I don't think he's a big Ken Walker guy.
So after that, we're into like DeAndre Swift. Because I do think that Khalil Herbert's going to be good. And I think he's going to be their lead. I don't know exactly what that entails in terms of fantasy points. If Fields rushes for 11 touchdowns, he's fucked.
Yeah.
But James Cook is the one that I wanted to slot in here somewhere. Would you rather have Ken Walker or James Cook? Do you just roll the dice on James Cook? Reports say he's a 3-down back.
Well, he does profile as at least a guy that's going to catch passes, but I don't really view him as a guy that's going to have more than 10 carries a game on average. I don't.
What if they bring in Dalvin Cook? Have the Cook brothers.
That's what I told Drew. I said they should be after Dalvin Cook. Are you kidding me? Why did they sign Damian Harris? Like they should release Damian Harris immediately and Cook. But my thing with Buffalo is, yeah, they're always among the leaders in rushing yards. Josh Allen is running around a lot. Devin Singletary led the team with 170 carries. So you take him away. What's happening? Are you giving 170 carries to Cook, or is Damian Harris going to be the goal line back there, the first and second down veteran back there? That's my problem.
I don't know if he'll be the first and second down back. I can see them like splitting series and doing things like that. So for example,
100%.
like the projections do have James Cook at running back 14, which is pretty lofty.
Yeah.
But that's on 175 carries.
So
Everyone
Singletary works then.
Everyone who projects around him, Jonathan Taylor, Jacobs, Hall, Madison, Etienne's a little bit lower, Javante's a little bit lower, like in the same tier as him. We're looking at like 267 carries, 261, 239. But this is also saying that he's getting 59 targets and 42 receptions and scoring upwards of 9 touchdowns, that's the hard part for me to believe.
That's one that I don't think, like, I don't believe he's going to have. I mean, he could, I guess. Like,
If they commit to
if
him,
it had to be 5 receiving touchdowns, I think more than half of them would be through the air than on the ground.
yeah, like if he gets 9, maybe they every single year. Paul knows this because he's a Bills fan.
Yeah.
All of the reports are we need Josh Allen to run less. We need to stop using it at the goal line to take all these hits, which is fine to say until Josh Allen's on the field and just running by himself.
You can only
They're
tell
not designed
somebody,
runs.
exactly. These guys just have it in their blood. I mean, Josh Allen's probably thinking, really, am I going to hand this off to Cook, or am I just going to run this in myself? But I really do believe that Harris is going to be a pain in Cook owners' behinds. I think he's going to be a guy that gets some goal line work, and I don't know. I don't view Cook as a guy, again, like I said, I don't think, if I'm averaging out carries per game for him, I think he's more like 8. But maybe I'm a little low.
I like him a little bit more than you do. I don't love him, but I think that like if you put Cook up next to Rashad White, I'd just rather have Cook because
Take the upside on the better offense.
Take the upside of the better offense and hope that what you project White to be in the Bucs offense, it's not insane to think that Cook could have that job in the Bills offense. And if he does, he's going to be awesome.
He would be. Oh, I'll give you
Where
that.
White needs to have that role just to be good.
Yeah.
If Cook gets that role or even 80% that role, he's going to be really good.
And there is something to be said about Damian Harris not being able to stay healthy, right? He's always seems to have a hamstring injury.
Degenerative knee problem
So
or
it seems to
something.
be something, right, in those cold weather games that he leaves. So if you were to tell me that Cook, would you say 170-ish touches? And
170-ish carries and like 45.
So that's definitely 15 touches a game. And get a guy 15 touches a game.
Is that really how much that comes down to?
It'd probably be a little bit more
45
than that,
plus
200.
175 divided by 17, 12 to 13 touches a game. That's not inconceivable.
Not bad.
Like if you said 10 a game plus 3 catches, we're there.
Yeah. Yeah, and a good offense.
In a good offense
Really
with the
good.
potential to score a lot of points, especially if they do scale back. And then Damian Harris leaves on a cart after 2 weeks or whatever it might be. Watch it just be some like absolute goober we've never heard of.
Cook was really efficient last year on those few touches that he had. He was checking a lot of boxes, yards after catch, in between tackles. He was
And
graded out really well.
if like I talked about it with Aaron Schatz last week, like who really cares that win total wise, fantasy wise, who cares that Naheem Hines is out for the year? But it might actually matter to Cook.
Yeah.
For the receiving game. If it matters anywhere besides special teams, it matters there.
Yeah, 100%. I would agree with that.
All right, who else do we got here? Like David Montgomery. I like David Montgomery a little bit. I like Jamal Williams. Like, would you rather draft Jamal Williams or Kamara?
I think I'd rather take Kamara.
Just because?
Yeah, just because I feel like this is a bit of a higher ceiling there, but Jamal's going to play a pretty big role there too.
Jamal Williams is being drafted as running back 39, pick 110. Kamara is being drafted at running back 31, pick 89. They're both kind of good values. You just have to get it right.
Yeah, you do have to get him right. I think like Kendra Miller is a guy that's going to take a back seat. I think at the time, maybe the Saints were thinking maybe the suspension would be pretty long with Alvin Kamara. And he is a good back, but I think it'll take some time. Maybe this time next year we're viewing him a little bit differently. But Jamal, the one thing with Jamal is like he is a good veteran back. I mean, he can catch, he can fill, if something happened to Alvin Kamara, like the suspension is lengthy. Jamal Williams, when he's playing in that backfield, is going to be his. He's going to be pretty valuable behind a good offensive line and a decent offense and get some goal line work there. But I just give me the upside in Alvin.
Any love for Miami running backs?
Not really.
Who's the first one you would take?
I think I would maybe just take Devon Achane.
He's the highest one being drafted.
Well,
It's pick number 117.
Wilson's the last one, but they're both. All three are going very, very late in drafts because there's a lot of uncertainty with.
I would say just draft Mostert, man. Anytime Mostert is healthy, they love using him. If San Francisco, Miami, doesn't matter where it is.
Yeah, McDaniel came over from San Fran, right? And brought him over and told him he'd have the exact same role that he had in San Fran, and he did. And
it's just like that. I think it was 2 years ago that we loaded up on Mostert week 1 against Detroit on DraftKings, ready to smash. He got hurt like 8 plays later.
He caught more balls than I thought he would last year, and Jeff Wilson too. Like when those guys were on the field, they were actually the third option behind the 2 stud wide receivers. Like there wasn't a tight end that was getting.
Well, Miami really only has 3 passing plays. They either throw it real deep and hope their receivers make a play on it. Those 12-yard outs to try to get them both into space or little dump offs.
Yeah,
That's it.
They have a lot of guys in motion moving around, and I like him as a play caller. I really like. I hope Tua can stay healthy. I'd like to see his ceiling, and plus, I don't want to see him getting more concussions.
Yeah, that's a scary scene. So I had this tier after Jamal Williams, Kamara and Williams. I had behind Kenneth Walker at the bottom of that tier. Then I got Rashad Penny, Pirine, Swift, Charbonnet, Elijah Mitchell, Antonio Gibson, AJ Dillon, like Algier. You could probably throw into that mix. Is there anyone else that we do need to talk about? You think?
I don't think. Just like maybe these veteran backs. Like if you're drafting today, do you take a shot on one of Zeke, Hunt, or Fournette if they're outside round 12? Because that is really where they're going. Once they sign and join teams, they will go higher in drafts. But what we're talking here, redraft, I think you want to wait as late as possible to draft, and at that time they will have teams that they'll be on. But what do you think if Zeke went to...
I don't want Zeke.
I don't want Zeke either, but what if he went back to Dallas, or what if he went to the Chargers?
Zeke only hurts whoever the starter is, wherever he goes. Yeah. I don't know if he has any standalone value, because I do not think that any team will give him the benefit of the doubt like the Cowboys did the past 5 years. Yeah. Like, oh, Zeke, you're our goal line back.
Right.
Like, Zeke stinks.
He's lost a lot of giddy up in his step. Yeah,
not quite as fast as he used to be. And when you don't have a team spoon feeding him touchdowns,
right,
and like high leverage situations, then I just don't know how useful he's going to be. The one would be like, is Kareem Hunt going to go anywhere, or is he just cooked?
I feel like he's got some. I feel like I would rather have him than Fournette.
Me too.
Like if
Damian Williams is still around too.
Yeah.
I saw he was working out with Arizona.
Oh, interesting.
So of like the backup guys. Like, is James Robinson the backup to Barkley? Is that who we're going with?
Yeah.
Like, is that worth a draft pick?
I don't think so.
Chuba Hubbard?
Chuba Hubbard may be worth the draft pick because Miles Sanders, in his rookie season, caught 50 passes, but it's been a decline in each year, and he was so piss poor through the passing game a couple years ago that they drafted Kenneth Gainwell, and they've kept Boston Scott on these rosters. I think Miles Sanders is going to be leaned on quite a bit. He's been an efficient running back over the course of his career, but he's leaving the best rushing team in football and the best offensive line in football and going to a team with a rookie quarterback and a bunch of other misfits there on the squad.
See, that's the problem with Chuba Hubbard for me. That even if Miles Sanders gets hurt and you project him to be the number one receiver running back like he was until everyone else on Carolina stole his job last year.
Yeah.
How good is he even then? Like I'd honestly rather have Algier.
Me too, because he's more of a home run, right? To your point,
Yeah.
we already know what he can do.
And we know
He can
that
get
the Falcons
1,000
are gonna
yards.
run.
Yeah, he can get 1,000 yards, and it's a good offensive line. So, yeah, I agree. I think that's it. I mean, Tajay Spears late, potentially.
To replace Derrick Henry, Tank Bigsby.
Jerome Ford late, even though I believe in Nick Chubb.
What if Chubb gets hurt?
A Jerome Ford,
Yeah.
you kind of want the next man up sort of deal. That's really it. I don't have any shares of Elijah Mitchell. The Miami conversation was interesting. It was good to bring up because it's a very cheap at the moment, but
It just feels
Cook's
like,
going somewhere.
like that is going to be a situation where every week on DraftKings you look at it and
Who's the cheapest?
and all three of them are going to be like $4,600. And you're like,
luck.
one of these guys is going to be good.
Good luck.
Which one's it going to
Good
be?
luck.
And you're just clicking their names and like whichever one you click. Whichever
Yeah.
one you quick
Yeah.
is going to score 4 fantasy
and they're all
points.
quick. Jeff likes A-Chain. He thinks that he's another guy that could be a league winner. And he talked about in one of an articles that he wrote about the health of Mostert and Wilson, which kind of have
Yeah,
to play
not
some
great.
factor.
And he's now a part of the Zoom room.
Yeah, he is. They can all zoom, man.
But
Fast.
he's being drafted where he should is the difference. So A-Chain going at pick 42 at running back, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
For an unknown role in the offense, pick number 116. That could be a home run pick. But now we're looking at a situation where you can get Mostert at undrafted.
Yeah.
Who might be the lead back.
Yeah,
And
it's
Jeff
really good
Wilson at
value.
undrafted.
They're both good values. Maybe you can pick and choose one of them, one or the other. In a couple leagues, you take them as flyers. There's one backfield we didn't talk about is Washington's Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson. You care about either of those guys?
I do, but I don't know which one to care about. So I have Mitchell behind like Charbonnet. No, sorry, Gibson behind Elijah Mitchell and in front of A.J. Dillon. And then I have,
You had Robinson, I think, in a respectable tier.
Robinson.
The Rashad Whites of the world.
That's Bijan Robinson.
Brian
Robinson. Let's see. I actually didn't even have him in as of yet.
Well, let's get him in. I think
had-
he's
I
a
had-
decent value.
In fairness, I had Bijan as him twice.
Okay.
I must have did a search and replace of names. So where does he go?
I think he's
Before or after Antonio Gibson, who's the new J.D. McKissick apparently.
So that's the thing, right? Like Antonio Gibson was a wide receiver in college, and they tried to make him a running back, and he wasn't good at being a running back.
But I don't understand how you can be a receiver in college. They make you a running back, yet they never,
But they never
pass you the ball.
They never, and now they're like, we'll throw. Because Ron Rivera was just all over him last year, right? Just took shots at him. I thought like
was playing special
unnecessary
teams.
shots. He was playing special teams. He was talking about how he wants him to be a north-south runner and not an east-west guy. But now, to your point, McKissick has gotten a lot of work over the years in that backfield catching passes.
One of my favorites.
One of your boys, right?
You punt running back, you just draft J.D.
You
McKissick.
draft J.D. McKissick.
He get you 10 points a week.
And I kind of feel like Gibson may play that role
Okay.
as a guy in Brian Robinson who should be the first and second down. They want to play at a slow pace. Remember how they beat the Eagles? They just ran. They ran, and then they made themselves get in manageable situations, 3rd and 5, and maybe throw the ball. So run with Brian Robinson, but in games that they are behind, and it's still going to be a brutal team. This is Sam Howell's quarterback 14 since Kirk Cousins left in 2017.
One of Jake Seeley's boom players
He
for the year.
loves Sam Howell. Okay. We'll see Jacoby Brissett will be quarterback 15. We'll see him at some point. But Gibson will catch some passes where I think he could get 40 catches, and that's pretty valuable in a PPR league.
For
Brian
sure.
Robinson won't catch.
He's a
at all, I
valuable
don't
bench piece to have.
Yeah.
Because even if Robinson gets hurt, I don't think it's the Antonio Gibson show.
It won't be, no.
It'll
It'll
be
be-
someone else.
bring some
So
guys
what
in.
happens with Robinson? So would you, again, back to the question, Robinson or Gibson?
I think I would lean Robinson, but they're in the same tier. It's weird to say, but they are. They're in the same tier as Robinson is the goal line back there. Is
We
like
think?
I think so.
Yeah,
Gibson's
I think so too, but
definitely not.
We could be wrong.
We could be, but I think Robinson did some really good things last year. He got shot in the leg.
He did
Actually
get
came
shot in the
back
leg.
and played
People
pretty
forget
well.
these things.
Played pretty well.
Couldn't even win comeback player of the year.
Oh, come on. So I think that they'll be very similar. I think they belong in the same tier. One guy's going to catch passes. One guy's going to get some short yardage, all the short yardage work and goal line opportunities.
So currently, he is being drafted behind Antonio Gibson by 2 spots.
By 2 spots,
They're running back 32 and running back number 34. Robinson's going 1 pick behind A.J. Dillon and just ahead of P. Ryan, Penny, Charbonnet, Khalil Herbert, Jamal Williams, Jerick McKinnon. I'd rather have all those guys.
Yeah, same. All those guys too. I think it's as simple as If you're in a half-point setting, you lean Brian, and if you're in a full-point PPR, lean Antonio Gibson. I really believe it's that simple.
I think that I'll just chuck him in right there. I think that makes the most sense for me. So that tier goes Penny, Pirine, Swift, Charbonnet, Mitchell, Dillon, Robinson, Gibson, Jalen Warren. Don't touch his baseball, and Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And then like Algier, Damian Harris, and I think that's good enough.
Yeah. Dylan kind of reminds me of Brian Robinson, right? Guys that aren't going to catch some passes, they'll get some carries. You hope the offense isn't atrocious.
Would you take Jarek or Gibson?
I would take Jarek. Yeah.
Jarek or Robinson?
I would take Jarek.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'm big on. Again, you're gonna have some spike weeks. It's the Chiefs after all.
Yeah, this isn't a starting running back on your fantasy team.
This is a guy that if he's your RB4 in a PPR league and somebody you can put in as your flex guy,
Good in a pinch. You need your good in a pinch guy.
Good offense.
You need your Marco Scutero of your fantasy team. Just throw him in wherever.
Nice throwback there. Yeah, it's just a bye week replacement. He's gonna have his spike weeks. And there were a lot of times last year where he was second behind Kelsey in targets and catches and receiving yards. There were multiple games.
He might be their best actual wide receiver.
Yes.
Like, Sky Moore is so good. Tony is so good. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're not good.
Tony's been the easiest fade, and now he's
now dropping though.
Yeah, of course, he's not gonna be ready for week 1. Right? He's already hurt. The first practice that the Chiefs had, he got hurt, and he was going as wide receiver 36. Pat, 36.
That's impossible. I don't believe that for a second. No one would do that. No one would do that.
I wouldn't do it.
All right, check out the rankings on DraftKingsNetwork.com, or you can just find them down in the description of this podcast and video. Sub to the video, sub to the podcast. That always helps us out. Leave a nice rating and review. You want to leave a bad one, you can go fuck yourself. But you want to leave a good one, we're all here for it. 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. All right, smash the like on the way out, and I will see you soon with wide receiver rankings.
Mayo experience! Experience!